Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday afternoon, morning, wherever you are. It's Friday for the 49ers. We're your host, Cohn and Sybilla Bakzaza. The week isn't over yet. Kyle talks in a couple hours. Kyle Shanahan, the head coach. So this is a business day for us. We have business to take care of. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. Sybilla, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay. I
I'm
can't
excited
complain.
to get into some of these topics today.
Let's talk about Kyle Shanahan first. Let's just get this out of the way. He was very critical of it. We haven't spoken since this game, so this is a little bit old. But he was very critical of his players after the game. He's been very blunt in press conferences this week, and he kind of changed his tone yesterday on KNBR. I think he kind of realized that he's kind of lost control of his tone right now, and it's not positive. Anyway, how did you interpret? How did you feel about the way he spoke after this loss?
To me, it was a bit of an emotional meltdown. He's very self-secluded from the media. He uses sarcasm, a little bit of wit, and he's very contrite sometimes with the media. And so I think that this was one of the first times where he just fell apart. I think it was an emotional breakdown. It was not a good look when it comes to leadership. It really was not. To sit up there, even if it's 100% one player's fault, or it's the team's fault, or special team's fault, he has nothing to gain as a leader by having that meltdown. So to me, that was bad coaching, bad leadership, and it was a complete loss of his emotional control. I think what we were seeing is maybe the reality of this season finally set in with Kyle Shanahan. And he realizes, no, there's not going to be
We're
a
not
Super Bowl
turning this around. Yeah,
and
right? Yeah.
it's so far into his career with the San Francisco 49ers that if he's not on a hot seat, then mentally he has put himself there. He knows. He knows that we see what's going on. And I just think that's what we saw after the game was a complete meltdown.
I think we've seen a lot of coaches on the 49ers. And I think there always comes a point when you feel like the coach is done, when it's clear he has no answers. The same issues pop up, the same questions get asked, and he doesn't have answers. Like for Mike Singletary, he became a joke when you knew after every loss he was going to say, I got to watch the film. It was a mantra. Everyone made fun of him. He's going to say it. Oh, he said it again.
I remember that.
Right. It was like, oh, here we go. Okay, he's got to watch the film because he's definitely going to find out what's going wrong when he watches the film. With Kyle, I think right now it's, well, we just got to execute. Every time they lose, it's, well, we didn't execute. Well, we got to execute better. Like, we get it. We know you didn't execute well. You haven't been executing well, particularly for like 4 of the last 5 years. Are you the guy to get him to execute, or is someone else the guy to get him to execute? Because that's just such a lame, hollow excuse at this point.
That's a really good point to make. Whenever a leader or a coach or a teacher says that my players, my students, my people need to execute more, that's actually bald-faced saying it's my fault.
Whether he realizes it or not, I can't get the results.
These every NFL player is a professional. I know some are not that good, but the bottom line is they're better than we are, and there's a reason they are there. So when it comes to execution, that's done by repetition, being forced to study the playbook. You don't leave things to these players' devices. They are getting paid millions of dollars, yes, but as coaches, you still have to give them a vision and force them to hit the books. And if they are not doing that, if they are not executing, that is 100% on the coaches. And if you have players who will not follow your vision, who are insurrectionists, then you have to bench them, you have to get rid of them, you have to find them, whatever. But in the end, even when you're dealing with a disruptive player, as a coach, you still have to be able to handle that. And there are ways to do it. So when he says that, he is admitting it's his fault.
Right. Agree.
I don't think he means it that way, though.
No, he doesn't at all, and that's the best part about it. Grant, check out Kayvon Thibodeau.
Thibodeau, I would love to have him, but it's not going to happen because he's going to go very high in the first round.
Oh, I haven't even started. Scout, he's good. He's good.
Yeah, I like him. I feel like he's a first rounder hands down. He's disruptive and he's strong and he's long armed. He's tall. He's
Is he like Oregon. A defensive end like Eric Armstead or a defensive end like Nick Bosa? Not Nick.
Let's hold no, not like Bosa. No, I think he's
3D end.
Armstead. Okay, we will not compare anyone to Buckner, but he's Buckner light.
Ooh, okay.
That's the style of player he might be able to become, I fear.
Expect Trey to start if not something is up against the Rams? I don't expect that. I don't expect that.
Especially against the Rams, I don't think he will start because of Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan's success against McVay.
Good point. Look at the Titans and see that they are the most injured team and are still on top of the AFC. Kyle is not a good head coach. This team needs a leader at top.
Derrick Henry, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Mike Vrabel is like on the opposite end of the coaching spectrum from Kyle. They're complete opposites. You know, one's a CEO defensive type who's not married to any one system. The other guy is a play caller who's married to a system.
Vrabel has no ego. That's one thing I love about him. He will do whatever it takes to win, whether it's his idea or not. He's a good coach.
That's a good leader right there. All right, let's talk about what John Lynch said about Fred Warner. John Lynch went on the radio and gave a really blunt assessment of one of his top players, as the Niners have been doing all year. He said Fred Warner really hasn't been living up to the expectations the organization sets for him and that he sets for himself. And that it happens sometimes when players sign a big contract that there's just a lot on their plate or they're trying to do too much. He was a little vague with that, but he basically said that Warner's not playing particularly great. And this is something you've been saying too. So what do you think of Lynch saying this?
It's one of those things where, as a fan, it's one thing when I say it,
right?
Especially about
my reaction,
or you, exactly. It's
another example of this regime blaming players. Like, what about you, John? How about you?
Right, and I wonder. You know, I would love to go back. I don't want to give Gruden any laurels, but when he played for Gruden, I don't recall Gruden ever calling him out. He didn't have a lot of bad games, Lynch, but back in his playing days, I don't recall his coaches throwing him under the bus this way. And especially as a player, as a defensive captain like he is, I feel like he should have not even gone there. There's no way to word one of my top players is playing poorly. He doesn't look physically strong. He doesn't look like he's following the game plan. He doesn't seem like he's keeping to his assignments. I mean, this is all what he did was he basically lit a fire under Warner, but that's something that needs to be done in private. Now, I don't feel that Warner is playing well. I've been all over him and Ward all year long. But
real quick, I mean, isn't Lynch doing what Shanahan did, where he's basically saying, like, okay, well, he's not living up to his contract. Well, who gave him the contract? You're saying you invested in the wrong person, right? Right? That's what you're saying, John.
I don't think that's what he's saying. I think what he's saying is, I did my job. You're not doing yours.
That's what he's trying to say. But his job was to not to admitting to us for the past, but to project the future. And again, he's invested in someone that's not getting him the ROI, and he's saying that's Warner's fault. Well, it's also I mean, a lot of people would say maybe we shouldn't give $17 million a year or $20 million a year, whatever, to a middle linebacker. I mean, that was your leap of faith. Just saying.
The way that Warner played when he was an all-pro, I understand because he's like a hybrid linebacker defensive back. It's still a lot of money, but it's one of those things where if we did not pay him, we were afraid someone would essentially, that we would lose him eventually, or that we would be facing a holdout or something like that. But definitely, he's not playing up to his, as you said, the return on investments. But I don't like it from another aspect. Again, the leadership. I don't understand what Lynch has to gain by publicly humiliating one of his players in a season which is already humiliating enough for all of these players.
Good point. What does he have to gain?
What he's doing is there is a thing such as tough love, but that's done in the locker room. That's done in private, in the office, and in meetings. It's not done publicly.
And again, Lynch needs to look in the mirror here. Look at the history of the players he's signed and what they've done. Like, he gave a ton of money to George Kittle. Kittle really hasn't done a lot since then. Fred Warner, he's come back to earth. Who else? Eric Armstead really hasn't lived up to that 1 year he had in 2019. I mean, maybe, and they didn't want to invest in DeForest Buckner. Maybe Lynch is investing in the wrong people. Just saying.
Even in the secondary, even people like Verrett, Tart, Ward, I don't see the point of signing these people and not drafting their replacements, certainly not playing their replacements, and giving them extensions. Yeah. Our money is not even on the field right now.
All right, but I want to stick with Warner here. So Lynch shouldn't have said this on the radio. Fair. But we agree with him. That's the thing. We agree with him on Fred Warner. What are you seeing from Warner this year? And first of all, start there. What are you seeing from him?
Every game, it seems like there is something different with him. I think his best mental game was the Green Bay game. The reason I say that is because he was faced with Aaron Rodgers, who is a maestro of orchestrating audibles and things like that. And that's where we got to see the Warner that is so good. The reason he gets paid so much is because he's supposed to be such a tactical leader. Mm-hmm. In the rest of the games this year, I don't see that as much. He looks lost on his assignments. He's trailing the people he's supposed to cover in passing. Physically, he's getting run over. Now, he was never a thumper. He's not
Right.
a downhill tackler. He's always been kind of a technical tackler.
Yes.
Kind of like the way that Ward was
Not a
few years
hitter.
ago.
Right.
As far as not missing, like it's not a thump. It's not Navarro Bowman. It's not Patrick Willis. We are very spoiled as San Francisco fans. But at least he would cover his tackles and he would drop the guy immediately. This year, they are running him over. If a running back comes his way, they will drag him 2 yards every single time.
Yeah, that's what it was like his rookie year too.
Which is strange because he had, I want to say it was like 21, 23 reps on the 225 on the bench press at the combine. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
That's very strong. So for me, I don't understand where that strength went. And it's almost like he's protecting himself because when he gets hit, the difference in his body language that I saw over the last years is when he hits, his shoulders are engaged forward. He's going into the tackle. When he hits this year, he's leaning back into the hits.
I see this a lot of times.
And that's why they drag him 2 yards.
I see this a lot of time with football players, and it's just human nature. Like if you're especially a 3rd round pick, a 5th round pick, and you start getting accolades, you'll play with reckless abandon to get that payday because you never thought it was going to come. You were just like a day 2, day 3 guy who could have been in and out of the league real quick. But all of a sudden now you're getting Pro Bowl recognition, all pro recognition. And if you just sell out your body 2 seasons, you're going to get $30 million, $50 million. And so you do it. And then you get the money. And now you just can't help but look at your body differently. Like, wow, this is the whole corporation here. This is the whole business. I gotta protect this. It's not the same. It's not like I'm going for another payday. It's like I got it, and now I gotta keep. And you just don't play the same. I've seen it so many times, and I think that's why Belichick doesn't give big extensions to a lot of people. He just doesn't. Yeah,
there's another player who's playing like that, and that's Bosa. I feel like he's going for stats in his games rather than keeping to his lane. And
I agree. And that's different to me though, because I feel like Bosa and Deebo are just. They're on the hunt. They can see the payday right there.
Exactly.
And so what are they going to be like after they get it? I don't know. What's Deebo going to be like after he gets it? I don't know. He's got a calf injury right now. Would he be playing through a calf injury if he'd already gotten an $18 million signing bonus this year? Probably not, because all of a sudden you got to start thinking about, man, this is the whole operation here. Can't jeopardize it. Just saying. I don't think he'd be playing right now if he was on his 2nd contract. Deebo.
Given who else we have on this team and the way we have seen them play after their 2nd contracts, absolutely, I think there's an argument for that. I have hope that Deebo is a little bit different because he's very erudite.
We're going to talk about him in a minute. We're going to go through each guy. I want to ask you right now with Warner, would you trade him in the offseason?
After this year, I don't know what we would get versus if he had one more good year. But here's the thing. We have to move some big pieces in this offseason to recoup some of our 1st rounders. Now, the argument that a lot of people make, which makes sense, is why would you trade proven assets for unproven draft picks?
It's true, because that's what the Niners did with Buckner.
Except, and Jason Aponte said this the best, and that is that they are backtracking to make up for bad draft picks. True. And that's the reality of where we are as San Francisco, that we are in the position of having to get a corner. Having to address, now we have to address the defensive line of all places. We certainly have to address the secondary and the offensive line. So someone like Warner is going to have to go on the move. We may have to bundle players just to trade up into the 1st round. I'm not exactly sure what the 49ers are going to do, but they're going to have to move someone like Warner. I am not happy with how Warner's playing this year.
Who's great, but you want to trade someone who's overrated, who's injury prone. You gotta make a tough decision here.
You know what Warner looks like? He looks like Armstead, that one huge year leading to a contract extension. I think the Niners are going to have to be reasonable, and I think that Warner is an excellent trade candidate, but I don't know what we would get for him.
True.
That's the issue.
He's going to get expensive. He's going to get very expensive, just like Armstead is.
So yes, I would move him, absolutely, because I feel like we are really good at training linebackers. I think Aziz Al-Shaair could clean up a lot of things in his game. I think when Dre Greenlaw comes back, there's depth at the linebacker position. And I think the Niners can go and draft someone in the 3rd or 4th round if they really want to get another Greenlaw.
It just hasn't been an impact player this year. And, the Niners are terrible against the run. How can you have the highest paid middle linebacker in the league, or the 2nd highest paid middle linebacker in the league, and be terrible against the run? I mean, where's the return on investment there? So look,
Exactly. If you look at the
you're not going to
finances,
trade him this week, but I think he's definitely a trade candidate. And by the end of the season, this is something they got to be thinking about the rest of the season. What is the future?
basically the Niners are paying X amount of dollars to not stop their run, whereas other teams with less flashy names, with linebackers who are not flashy in either pass or run prevention, are basically getting more per dollar against the run. And so yeah, that's definitely something that they have to get rid of him. I really feel that. And I don't think it will be as big a blow to this team as people think.
Well, he's not making an impact right now.
Exactly. No, he's a liability. Let me say that.
New DC, bad secondary, D-line, undisciplined, not Fred's fault. I'd like to see D'Amico stack Charles and Nick on the edge or run some stunts with Fred and Bosa. Not Fred's fault. I also see a guy who's triggering very late in the run game. Guy who kind of stands flat-footed. Alshire too. And they seem like they're playing pass first almost. Like when the run happens, they're like, oh my God, let's go get that. And then the running back's already 3 yards downfield. Anyway.
I don't think Fred Warner wants to take the hits from linebackers, or excuse me, from running backs. I think he would prefer to play the pass. The way he plays his game, he looks scared of the run.
Whew. Okay. So we just asked keep or trade Fred Warner. You aired on trade. If you were GM, that would be someone you would dangle to get picks, which the Niners desperately need. Let's keep going because there's a long list of players that need to be considered. The next one is George Kittle, who's currently healthy, although probably not 100%. I don't know the last time he was 100% healthy. He is a good receiver, very good receiver for a tight end. He's a little bit smaller than he used to be. I don't think he's quite the blocker he used to be, but he's still a good blocker. He's a hell of a player. But he definitely misses time, and he's very expensive. And he's almost 30. I think he's 28. Would you keep Kittle after the season, or would you trade him?
So I would make a few phone calls. I would want to see what I could get for him. I'm not taking a third rounder for him. No way. And I just think that with his injury history, I don't think we're going to get a first rounder for him. Yeah. Is he worth it when he's healthy? He's worth more than a first rounder when he's healthy. Yeah. But just because of his track record, I don't know if we can get what we need for him. So the issue is, what would I get for him? If I could get a second rounder, I would have to think about that, because that's not really... I mean, could we pair a couple of second rounders, trade back up into the first round or something like that? That would all be contingent on whether I could get into the first round as a result of his trade and the trade of another player. So the bottom line is, I just don't think right now I could say I could trade Kittle for anything that would be worth it. If from this point on he is very healthy, very productive, goes back to his blocking accolades, then he becomes an excellent trade candidate. And for his money, and if I can get a first rounder, yes. But I don't think we can. So therefore, I think if I get a second round offer, I have to say no.
I think I'd take it. And I know it sounds hard, and maybe it would be demoralizing for the locker room, and fan base would be mad at me.
That's why I would not take it.
Yeah, maybe they'd be mad at me, but you know what? I just don't know what to expect from Kittle. In fact, I think I know what to expect from Kittle going forward. A lot of injuries and missed time. And
let me throw this at you. You have a general manager throwing players under the bus, who is, again, one of my favorite all-time players. Hate saying this about him. You have Kyle Shanahan, who has had a little bit of a meltdown. He's not the most alpha leader, as we've talked about. Do you think the message to the locker room of dumping George Kittle for a second rounder, I mean, would that not be the nail in the coffin to the morale of this team?
I don't care about the morale. If I'm the general manager, this team's over. I'm rebuilding. This team is over. I'm coming in. I'm starting over. And
what does that do to
with, like, players who are good when healthy? I'm not building that way. I gotta address this issue of lack of durability on this roster, and building around players like Kittle who are hurt half the season. I can't do that. Can't have this guy. So if I don't take a second for him this year, he'll be worth a third or a fourth next year if I'm correct about where his career is headed, and I think I am. So I'm taking it. I can't have these players on the team, and it's way too many guys who are hurt most of the time. Way too many.
If we are moving them, then Garoppolo has to go, because we are going to need to let Trey Lance take the reins, and we are going to have first rounders to build around him. So I guess a second rounder, I can understand that, but then we definitely have to move Warner, definitely have to get rid of Garoppolo, and have to move Kittle, because Trey Lance would be taking the reins. And unless we want a 5-year rebuild or a 3-year rebuild, we will definitely need some assets to protect him. I know.
I would say the number one reason not to trade Kittle. The number one reason not to trade Kittle is you really don't want to start sending away weapons from a young
Exactly.
quarterback. Like the more weapons, the better for Trey Lance. So
I
look,
wonder what the Falcons would do if you offered them Warner and Kittle.
for what? For Pitts? They'd say no. But no, like you'd want to keep Kittle for Trey Lance's sake. But does Kittle even want to play with Lance? I don't know. Maybe. And then, but again, like
I
if
think
Kittle's
Kittle
hurt
is
half
a
the year,
49er. I
what are
think
you
that
paying
as
for?
long as Jimmy is on this team, he has to play this I'm a Jimmy kind of guy. I mean, and I respect that. I do. I mean, in the military, I had good officers and better officers, but when guys were serving with me for a specific amount of time, I had loyalty to them. And publicly, there's no way I would say, yeah, I like the new guy. There's no way I would do that to a guy.
Okay, let's put it this way. If Kittle gets hurt again this year, I'll trade him. But if he can stay healthy the rest of the year, I'll keep him another year. One more year. So you know what? You're more valuable to our team and our locker room than a second round pick. But if he gets hurt again, I'm saying, you know what? This is a clear pattern. I'm not going to ignore it.
So you think we can get a second rounder if he gets hurt again?
I don't know. But if he gets hurt again and someone's offers it, I'm going to say thank you.
That I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Deebo Samuel, keep or trade at the end of this year. He's going on a tear. He's having a terrific season. He might expect a contract extension. His stock is at an all-time high. This is a guy who was hurt all of last year and kind of limped through a few games. Also, he is the number one player on the team right now. He's the best player on the team. Maybe him or Trent Williams. What do you think? Keep or trade?
Hands down, keep. And this is why. 3 reasons. The first reason is if Jimmy Garoppolo is gone, you're going to be dealing with a young quarterback who needs gadget plays.
That's right.
He needs someone to bail him out on a 3rd and long. Deebo can do that. Yeah. Second reason, the weapons. He needs the weapons around him, especially if Kittle is gone. But even if Kittle is still here, he needs weapons. Trey Lance can make up for the fact that we don't have the best O-line as he gets more comfortable, making people like Deebo Samuel a lot more dangerous. I think Deebo is more dangerous with Trey than he would be with Garoppolo because Trey can extend plays, and that allows Deebo to rattle and get loose.
Yes.
The third reason is simply because this guy's going to be elite. If he stays healthy, he will be elite. He's already having an elite season. To get rid of something like that, it's like, why'd you draft him then?
Right. Okay, I wouldn't trade him either. I think Lance is going to need this guy.
And we have to pay him.
See, I wouldn't go that far. I would not go that far. Because he's one healthy guy.
That's the thing.
Well, maybe, but again, like you're asking for another George Kittle to happen if you do that. So what I would do is I would keep him, and he'd play out his 4th year in his contract, and let's see him stay healthy again. Do it again next year, Deebo. And if you do, I'll franchise tag you, and then do it again. And if you can stay healthy for 3 years, I'll definitely pay you at that point. But not because you did it 1 year.
He's not going to accept being franchise tagged twice. I don't think so.
I'll give him this once because he's signed next year. He's still on his rookie contract next year. If he stays healthy again, tag him for 2023. And if he stays healthy again, give him the check. Otherwise, thank you for your
franchise tag. If he accepts it, I think it inspires him to play out of his mind.
Great. That's what I want. I want players with things to prove, not players who've gotten – because the Niners are just so eager to throw money at players. Like, you know, a lot of guys are really rich right now because of the 49ers, like Jerick McKinnon, Tevin Coleman. I think you're going to be great for me as opposed to bringing in someone who doesn't command much money and has something to prove. Those are the guys the Patriots get usually. Anyway, so we're keeping Deebo, but we're not giving him the check just yet. He's got to keep proving it. And I think the Niners have all the leverage there. All right, what about Nick Bosa? Keep or trade Nick Bosa at the end of this year.
Objectively, as a player, he's not playing the run that well this year. I am a bit concerned with that.
He's also
he
a liability
overshoots the gap like you would. I'm sorry.
He's also a liability on screens. Cardinals.
Oh no, he overshoots the gap and he freezes flat-footed and then has to take off again. He's lost against backfield plays right now.
Anytime you throw a screen at his side, it's a big play.
No joke. In the Cardinals game, they were running at him.
Yeah, no doubt. They've been doing that for 2. They did that. Chicago did that too. I'm not sure if it's Chicago that I see. I don't think Chicago exposed it. I think they saw it on tape all year long. Yeah.
And when it came to that game, they said, "Don't fear the name. Don't fear the fact he can get after the quarterback. Run at him."
Right.
And so
don't run away from him. Run at him.
Bosa's very strong. He's very physically fit. I think he can adapt. The one thing is, I just feel like the brand name Bosa is going to demand a whole lot of money.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, he's accumulated a good amount of sacks per game
Oh yeah.
this year. He's on that stat alone, it looks like he's having a wonderful year. But if you look at the complete game, the Niners need someone who can set the edge. And he's just not doing that. So I honestly, yes, absolutely trade him. Hopefully you can get a first rounder for him. And that's a piece I would absolutely put on the move, especially with keeping Deebo, is basically I would trade Bosa away in order to draft his replacement. But that's the catch, is that if you trade him away, you need his replacement.
Well, okay. I mean, it's a little bit like the DeForest Buckner situation. I would trade Nick Bosa because you said maybe they could get a first round pick for him. I think they could. Just like you said, his name is going to get him a lot of money in free agency. It carries a lot of weight in trades too. This was the number 2 pick in the draft who did miss a season, but is on pace for 15 or 16 sacks this year. He's really has a sterling reputation in the league. I think he'd be worth a top 10 pick. I mean, if Buckner was the 7th pick and then they got the 13th pick for him. So it dropped 6 picks in value over 4 years. I mean, Bosa, I think you could probably get the 7th, the 8th, and something like that for Nick Bosa. And maybe some people be like, well, you're not going to get someone as good as Nick Bosa with that pick. Well, you might get someone who's going to be more durable.
Cheaper.
Like, do you really believe Bosa is going to have a long, consistent, healthy career? Do you? I don't know about that. Or is he going to be in and out?
I don't. And he may prove us all wrong, but as far as logic would dictate, I would say no. And here's the thing. We are not just trading for a draft pick. We are trading his future contract away with it. We have to, if we are going to rebuild quickly, we have to hit the reset button on a certain number of players. And without a doubt, that's one of them.
So you've gotten 2 really cost-effective seasons from Nick Bosa, but you need first-round picks. And frankly, he's your best trade asset in the organization by far. So if you really want to get some assets, this is a conversation you got to have. This is something you got to entertain. And I think, if he were Buckner and had never missed a season and hadn't torn both ACLs in his life, plus his abdomen. Yeah, I mean, he had 3 major surgeries. He's one more.
Yeah, the core muscle surgery, and exactly.
He's one more away from having way less value. Instead of hoping that doesn't happen and being surprised when it does, I would sell high now. I know it's painful, fans, but these are decisions you got to make.
No, I don't think it's painful because we got our 1 Super Bowl run out of him.
Yeah.
And like I said, we have to hit the reset button to recoup assets and perhaps even more importantly, clear cap space in the future.
Some team's going to give him 12, 13% of their salary cap space. He's going to get 30, $35 million. He's going to get quarterback money. He's not.
Exactly.
No player is that good. Not even quarterbacks. And he's going to get that money. So no, I would definitely trade him.
We will not be able to afford him and still be competitive. That's the issue.
Right. No team will. George Kittle to Baltimore for 2nd rounder.
No, they would not. They don't want him. Yeah. They have Andrews.
No on Kittle because Niners don't know how to draft. You're forgetting that this is for me. I'm going to be the new general manager, and I'm great at drafting. Sybil and I too. The 2
I
of us.
will take over the weight room. That's all I want to do.
Jed York, have your mom call Tony Dungy and ask him to be the GM. Allow him to hire the head coach and set the tone for winning in this locker room. I like that. But honestly, though, I'd rather have someone who's been in the league right now. Don't take someone who's been retired. Someone who's had results recently. I'm just saying. The game
moves available.
I don't know. Real quick, I think you're wrong. Warner has a lot in his plate trying to cover all the hole in the secondary. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, we got 9 more games. We're not trading anyone yet.
That's fair. That's a fair argument to bring up as far as, Warner is trying to make up for a lot of injuries, but that does not excuse the fact he's getting run over like a high school player by running backs. He needs to man up, get in the weight room, and start acting like a linebacker out there.
What Sybil is saying is that he's catching ball carriers, not striking ball carriers. This is a very clear distinction.
Exactly.
Right.
Just for you guys out there, watch his body language as he rocks back to take the hit rather than lean into the hit. And that's what Bowman and Patrick Willis do. That's what Roquan Smith, he doesn't just lean into the hit, he levels the hit. Fred Warner's not doing that.
Right. None of this makes sense because our GM is inept. We didn't hear is we're promoting ourselves to GM, so don't worry, it's all going to work out. We just got the promotion.
No, I still want to be the weight trainer. That way I can complain to you about your draft picks. I'll be like, why'd you send me this? What am I supposed to do?
Ward and Tart, would you bring him back one more year?
Neither of them. The reason is the injuries. How are we supposed to build this team on guys that might play? Right. And if they might play, let's say they start, they go through 6, 7, 8 games.
And they're good.
They miss a couple of games. The people who fill in for them are rookies or second-year players we have drafted who are not getting any kind of continuity or any kind of game speed or playing time. So we are not developing the draft picks that we got. This is the year to do it. Someone said that they, what a boost to the secondary that Ward is coming back. What are we playing for? Mid-round draft picks?
Right.
So no, it's not a boost. It might be a boost to the secondary, but it's not a boost to the team. It's certainly not a boost to other players that could fill in at his position. I mean, at this point, we should be developing our players. So next year, Ward, he got an extension. We're paying him to sit on the sideline. He cannot stay healthy. This is a track record. I feel for the guy, but also kind of like Warner, he's getting run over flat by anyone who comes his way this year. He's not a thumper anymore.
No.
And I have to say, I'm a competitive person, but I don't play in the NFL. But I have to say, in all the jobs I've had, I don't play with that lack of gusto like Ward. Ward is playing like a guy who knows he's got to stay on the field.
Right.
Because he knows his body will betray him. And I fear for him on that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help the team.
Doesn't help the team, no. The Niners have to, they keep bringing Ward and Tart back because they're cost effective. They want to be here. They're good when healthy. But again, it's like when they're not healthy, which is especially Tart half the season, the whole thing falls apart. They're way too dependent on these guys because they're both.
I have never understood why Ward gets so much static and Tart just seems to kind of get swept under the rug because he's just as bad when it comes to availability.
Oh, he's the worst. He's the worst. And he's actually good when he plays, but when he's not out there, it really hurts the team. And it's like, well, you shouldn't have been. Like, he's the kind of guy where, okay, he's cheap, but you have to have like another starter behind him because he's not going to be there. So he costs you more because you have to have extremely expensive insurance, right? Either a high draft pick or someone who's making even more money than him. I don't know.
The other thing with Tart is like, could we restructure his contract, keep him as a depth piece? I don't think he would want that. Therefore, we just have to let them go.
No. Okay. This is a bonus topic, and it's something I want to throw at you real quick. To me, the Niners are so confused as to why they're 3-5. They didn't see this coming, and they don't really have answers as to why. It's they're not executing or they're not. No, it's real obvious. In the offseason, they thought they'd be good. The only thing they needed to do to be good was to insulate themselves at quarterback. They thought, 2020 happened because Jimmy got hurt and we didn't have a good enough backup. That's the only reason that happened. So now we'll be insulated at quarterback. There's no way we're going to have a losing season. No way. We're a good team. But they're wrong because the issue is not quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo isn't great, but he's not bad. The issue, and we talked about it, I've been talking about it a long time, was the secondary. It was the secondary. It's very important, a secondary, and they never really seriously addressed it. And the reason they're 3-5 and not 5-3, I mean, they should have beat the Packers, right? They had that. They were winning with 37 seconds, and they couldn't. The secondary blew it, period. That's one loss right there. And I'm sure we could find another loss where the secondary didn't help them at all. Had they actually had someone better than – had they actually had corners who were better than Verrett, Mosley, whatever they got out there this year, had they actually spent real money and assets on corner and safety, they might be 5-3 right now. But they thought those positions weren't as important as backup quarterback. Good call. Good call. That's all I got to say.
Fundamentally, I think this team is caught between the fact they're holding on to Garoppolo and want Trey Lance, and they're just not making the transition because they were holding on to these delusions of grandeur that they were going to win the Super Bowl. And when Verrett went down, that's absolutely reset the reality of the San Francisco 49ers. They have to address the secondary, absolutely.
I mean, would they have lost to the Colts and Michael Pittman if they had some real corners on their team?
Not. That game was given away because Carson Wentz
the secondary
quarterback. all I need to do is throw the ball as far as I possibly can.
Exactly.
And they will hold the guy. They will knock him down. They will do something.
Exactly. So there's two losses right there that you can pin on the secondary. Green Bay, Indianapolis. 2 losses, both in prime time, where, I mean, Jimmy was terrible against Indianapolis, but he was really good against Green Bay. They could have won both games had they had like an NFL caliber secondary, but the Niners are like, nah, we're good. We'll be fine. We'll just, get some 1-year deal guys, get some guys who are good when healthy, and we'll figure it out. But we're gonna spend 3 first-round picks on a backup quarterback, and that will make sure that we make the playoffs. Nah, it didn't work that way. Who could have predicted
I think the San Francisco 49ers are convinced it was only Patrick Mahomes who beat them.
Yep.
They're convinced that it's just Russell Wilson, that it's just Kyler Murray, that it's just people like Lamar Jackson that are beating them. They are convinced that's what you have. You have to have that. And
also, they convinced themselves that last year it was all Nick Mullins' fault. They all convinced themselves, man, this guy's he's not an NFL caliber quarterback. This is terrible. And I think that's what the team thought. It's all his fault. He threw another pick. No, that was not the truth. And once again, this team didn't look in the mirror. They didn't look in the mirror after they lost the Super Bowl. They didn't look in the mirror after that debacle last year. And all they thought, let's just get Nick Mullins out of the building, get a really good backup quarterback, and Jimmy wins. Jimmy wins. And if he gets hurt, then we'll still be good. Nope. Secondary is atrocious. And everyone told you that. And that's why you're 3-5 and not 5-3. Your secondary.
Absolutely.
Period. They could have had Asante Samuel Jr., but they got a guard they don't play. Anthony says, how do you bring back a safety with no interceptions since the Obama administration? We need playmakers. That's what we're missing besides leadership. I agree. Playmakers.
That is a great statistic. I like that.
The Obama administration. I like when you measure things in terms of administrations. That really puts it in
that was good
perspective. All right. Moving on. The 2022 offseason. This is really tricky. I just want to point out to fans how bleak this could be. There's a lot of guys on this team who are on 1-year deals. They could all leave because this team's looking like, what if they missed the playoffs? They could all leave. Also, no first-round pick. So not a lot of draft, not a lot of cap space either. So for this team to retool and make a run next year, they're going to have to make their moves really in free agency. They're going to have to decide which of these guys to bring back and who to bring in. And I just want to point out, like, this regime has a terrible record in free agency. They've had some good trades, but free agency, their best free agent signing is Kyle Juszczyk. And they've had some real bad ones. I just did the math earlier. I'd like to point it out. Hold on. This is a list. So since 2017, the Niners have spent, these are some of their worst signings. Quan Alexander, Jerick McKinnon, Tevin Coleman, Pierre Garçon, Marquise Goodwin, Malcolm Smith, Brian Hoyer, Cassius Marsh. None of these guys are on the team anymore. They were all busts. And they cost the 49ers $104 million. So can you really trust this regime to head into this offseason and get it right? I don't know.
Here's the thing. If the 49ers are losing now, and they're already a losing team by default, and they don't have the capital to rebuild, you don't get better.
Yeah.
So that's why we've been discussing who we have to trade, the reality of having to hit the reset button.
And, so we're talking about, like, the Niners need to get rid of Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tart. Don't count on it. I would imagine what they're going to do next year is probably do a lot of what they did last year.
Holes to fill, because right now they are probably 100% convinced the only secondary hole they have to fill is corner.
Yeah.
And watch them spend another not first or second round pick on the corner.
Right. They'll spend like a late third and be like, oh, see, we did it. Just like Ambry Thomas. This 2022, next season could be even worse. That's the bleak thing about the Niners. Like, next season could be even worse, even if Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are here. Like, they're not really positioning themselves to bounce back next year. I just don't see how they turn this around in the offseason unless they find some first-round picks or make some trades. Like, they can't just go into free agency and spend their way out of this. They don't know how to do that, and they don't have enough funds to do it anyway. Yeah, exactly.
And again, by trading people away, they are setting themselves up with cap space years down the line as well, because this is not something that we might be able to skate by next year, but it's going to require more than a single year in order to get the Niners into dynastic mode.
True. Fred, fastest middle linebacker in the league, and his instinct can be elite. I've seen it. I'd take an elite middle linebacker over Bosa. Bosa's a good trade option.
That's fair, and I think he says the right thing. He can be. Absolutely.
Let's see how Fred Warner responds after getting called out by the general manager, who also happens to be a Hall of Famer, John Lynch. Let's see, because Fred Warner carries himself as like someone who aspires to be a Hall of Famer. So you just got called out by John Lynch. Let's see how.
He has what the ancient Greeks would call arete, which is humble arrogance. That's how they describe this phenomenon. Fred Warner, and I like that about him.
Yeah,
that he knows he's good. He wants you to know he's good, but he's going to be quiet about it. And I do like that about him.
I agree. I think Buckner had that too. Thank you, JC. All right, moving on.
I think Buckner was just straight humble. I loved Buckner. I just feel like sometimes he knew how good he was, but he still kind of hung his head a little bit when he talked. I liked him.
Yeah, he was very mature too. All right, let's do some predictions. This is, I think, Niner fans' nightmare that next year Kyle Shanahan starts minicamp, starts training camp, and says, Jimmy's starting quarterback of this team. Nothing against Trey, and Trey's the future for sure. But I mean, just because we had an offseason doesn't mean anything's changed. I mean, Jimmy's still the starting quarter. Trey's just not quite. He's not where we're going to stay with Jimmy. What are the odds that Kyle Shanahan digs in that hard and goes another year with Jimmy Garoppolo?
Very high.
I agree. What indicate?
I mean, like 95 to 99% high.
What shows that he's getting Trey Lance ready for this? I mean, Joe Montana started 7 games before the Bill Walsh gave the team to him in 81. Like I don't see. Kyle Shanahan's already said he's not going to start Trey Lance until they're like eliminated from the playoffs. What if they don't get eliminated until week 17 or week 18? What if they make the playoffs? What if Trey Lance starts 1 game this season? How is he more ready? How is he ready next year? From Kyle Shanahan's rubric of readiness, how is he ready? Hasn't played in 2 years. I don't know. I mean, Jimmy currently.
Well, I have never taught anyone how to fight by just keeping them in the classroom and never letting them throw a punch, never letting them feel what one feels like. So you can, he will be more educated next year. But, it's just you have to put your training into exercise. And there's nothing that will teach Trey Lance how to do things more than game speed. So he has to get that. And the thing is, if they keep Jimmy Garoppolo next year, then what kind of draft assets will they be giving Jimmy Garoppolo? Will they be tailored? Will this team continue to be tailored to Jimmy Garoppolo? Or will they reset themselves and tailor it to Trey Lance? That's the other thing. That's the other reason why I think they need to make the jump to Trey Lance, is simply so they can begin building the team around him.
Agree. I think Niner fans don't just think that Kyle Shanahan has this plan where, it's Jimmy this year and it's Trey next year. That plan doesn't make any sense. Just sitting Trey Lance for a year doesn't make it easier to start him next year. I almost think it makes it harder to start him next year. If Jimmy keeps his team in contention and Trey Lance gets no experience this year, it's almost harder to start him next year. So don't think that this is just magically going to transition to Trey. As long as Kyle's the head coach here, he strikes me as someone who's didn't want Trey Lance. He's been, he's saying that he's enthusiastic about him, but he has to because he has bosses who wanted this kid. And he's not looking to play him now. And I wouldn't expect that he'd be looking to play him anytime soon, even though he says that he's so eager. No one's more eager than you. Really? I'm more eager than you. I am more eager than you, Kyle, for Trey. I promise you.
The whole fan base is just about.
The whole fan base is more eager than you.
So with some Jimmy holdouts, I definitely think the fan base wants to see Trey Lance, especially at this point. We have nothing to gain in this season by continuing to roll out this squad. We have to get into him. Absolutely. We should have transitioned already, but it's just not going to happen. And I think next year we will see Jimmy Garoppolo back. And that's a guy whose contract we need to dump for free agents. Maybe the corner we need is on the free agent market next year.
Right.
And if you dump Jimmy Garoppolo, then you're going to have to you will be able to bring him in. And you won't have to pay him the same contract, which means you'll have extra cap space.
Right. Will John Lynch be the general manager in 2022?
That is completely contingent on whether or not the York family thinks that there has been progress from this point forward. And a win on Sunday is a mark of progress that will set the 49ers back even further. That's the issue, is I think that they are going to judge how John Lynch responds to this, not judge him for his track record. The other thing is, York promised us he was going to get this right. And I'm not holding him to his word, but I think he is. And his idea to get this right was John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. And I think for a young owner like him, he's not going to be able to reconcile, I'm firing the people that took us to a Super Bowl. I just don't, I feel like he's had enough. So I don't know if he fires John Lynch. And that's why I think there's more than a 50-50 chance he will be here next year.
If they make the playoffs, no one's getting fired. But definitely, if they don't make the playoffs, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they can. I don't think the Yorks will just bring back everyone. I don't think the fans will allow it. And the Yorks are pretty reactive. If the fans are really upset, the Yorks will usually do something, make a sacrifice, or they'll usually do something. I mean, money isn't that big of a deal for them. They're worth $4 billion. So, okay, they gave this guy an extension. They didn't give it to him right away, though. They dragged their feet giving John Lynch the extension after giving it to Kyle Shanahan. Lynch was like MIA for a while. I don't know if people remember this, but I think
in the offseason, it seemed like
he didn't get it right away, and his wasn't as long as Kyle.
To be fired.
Yeah, his wasn't as long as Kyle. So I kind of feel like there's feeling in the organization like, what do you do, man? Like, we like you, but we don't need you. And if someone has to go, he's an easy one because he never really had the resume for it. I mean, him getting this job is kind of outrageous if you think about it, when this is a league that's all about trying to empower Black people with resumes, and they give it to jobs like this, which there's only a few of them, to a white guy who has no resume. I'm not trying to make it racial, but I'm just saying it's a bad look, especially when you have no results. So it's hard to justify keeping this announcer with no results another year, especially if you miss the playoffs. So I don't think he's going to be the GM next. I think he's on really shaky ground, which is why he's going on the radio and saying stuff like it's Fred Warner's fault or stuff. Sorry.
That does not improve his case.
And it may not be John Lynch's fault, but I don't think he's going to be coming back.
He may smell blood in the water. He may know his fate already, or at least fear it. Definitely, I think there's a possibility he'll be gone next year. If we end up as a losing team, then I think, as you said, the reaction of the Yorks, they're going to have to essentially sacrifice to the gods. And I think that's going to be John Lynch. Definitely. But if they get to the playoffs, if there seems like there is enough progress, then I think he will come back.
Okay, here's the $1 million question. Will Kyle Shanahan be the 49ers head coach in 2022?
Yes, because I don't think they will rock this organization by getting rid of both of them. I certainly don't think they will get rid of Kyle Shanahan before they get rid of John Lynch. And I think it's going to be one before the other, and that one is John Lynch, not Kyle.
I wouldn't be so sure about Kyle. I think it's 50-50 right here. I think he's on the hot seat. And I think how the season ends will determine. I don't think you can just say he's definitely back next year. I think it's contingent on the way this season goes. So let's say they make the playoffs. He's back. Let's say they miss the playoffs, but they miss it by a game, and Jimmy starts the whole season because they're going for it. I mean, Kyle says he likes Trey Lance. He says he wants to coach him in the future of the franchise, but if he doesn't play him at all this year and they fail to make the playoffs, I mean, then you'd have to go and say, well, as an owner, are you going to start Trey Lance next year? And if Kyle says, I don't know, we'll have to see how it plays out. I don't know, man. At that point, I'm thinking, I can't trust this guy with my asset. I got to protect Trey Lance. And I just don't know. I know he wanted Mac Jones. I mean, I'm just saying, you have to be careful here. And if he can't get Trey Lance on the field at all this year, he's saying the right things about Trey. He's the future. I'm eager to see him play. But if he can't show that, can't get him on the field at all, can't show any promise, and it's all words and no results, then I'm thinking, I don't know this is the right coach for Trey Lance. And another year with him sounds good. You know, you don't want to change. You don't want to have kid learn another system. It sounds good, but if the coach isn't the right coach for him, another year will just be detrimental.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I feel like perhaps the York family, Jed York, he would probably come out and say, play Lance.
I agree. And I think he would come out and say, look, it's my call. It's my team, play Lance. And at that point, Kyle has to show he wants to. He has to show he wants to. If he does it begrudgingly, and there's another start, and there's 12 quarterback runs, and there are a bunch of quarterback powers and counters, and that's how you're going to – no, then you're out. But if you play him again and you put him in your offense and he's under center and he's doing play action, then okay. I don't care what the results are. At least you're showing that you want to coach him, that you have a vision for him in your offense. It's not some begrudging thing you're doing because the organization forced you to. If he can show that, then he can stay. Fine, absolutely. But if he doesn't, if when he plays Trey Lance, it's more the same from the first Arizona start, I don't want that. I don't because he's gonna ruin the asset. They have to protect that kid. They have to. No more quarterback counter and quarterback power 12 times a game. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, if in addition to telling him to play him, I think that they also need to say protect him.
Yeah.
Which means they have to draft some unoffensive lineman to a guard, perhaps, or maybe a center.
Yeah.
Somewhere high in the draft. Or I mean, I don't know what free agents would come available next year, but as far as drafting, they need assets to protect Trey Lance, and it's not just weapons and expecting his legs to get outside and extend the plays. They need to make sure there's no chance that he gets hurt and by extension slaughters the franchise's chance that year. So I think it's not just play him. I think it's play him well, like you said, and I think it's also you and John, if you are here next year, get him assets that can protect him.
Sure. Show some enthusiasm for playing him because the game plan he drew up for his first start was not an enthusiastic game. It was a pessimistic. It's like, this is the best he can do. This is what we can do.
You know what it looked like? It looked like he took his playbook and said, "Fine," and just threw it down and said, "Run." Yeah.
Fine.
See how good
This is the quarterback you gave me.
In spite of having to play him,
it was a cynical game plan. This is what he can do. Or we can run. He can run. He can run power. He can run counter. It's like, okay. He can't be under center at all. That's what he did in college. But now you have all right.
Watching the Ravens and how they run Lamar Jackson, they will do that like twice a game.
Yeah.
And if it's there, and they'll go with it. If it's not, they don't just keep having him pound the middle.
It's a bonus topic. I prepared you for it. I don't know if you saw it. I wasn't there yesterday, but it was documented. Pictures, videos. John Lynch, not Jed. John Lynch went to practice. And he wasn't just standing there at practice. He was chopping it up with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and then watching Trey Lance throw, along with Jimmy Garoppolo, of course. How do you interpret that? Maybe he loves Kyle and John. He just went to say what's up. We have no idea what the conversation was. But even if they didn't talk about anything, did John York send a message by showing up to practice? This isn't something he does all the time. He lives in Youngstown. Did he send a message by going to practice and talking to the coaches? To the GM and the coach.
Just like in ancient Rome, when there's dissension in the Senate, then the dictator comes out and he smiles and waves at the people, at the mob.
Hey.
There is that aspect, absolutely.
You don't even have to say anything, right? That's a statement. Hey, I'm here.
Exactly. Hey, and you know that he could be saying, you're doing a horrible job, but make sure you're smiling. I might fire you next year, but wave at the fans. Right. Who knows what they were saying? I'm sure it was not that bad, but the point is the symbolism of being there together was intentional. It was calculated, of course. It's not a bad move. I think they need to show unity. I think right now, with all of the dissension and the controversy that we are digging up, and that's manifesting itself because of comments like throwing Warner under the bus, they needed to show a little bit of leadership stability. It was a good move. However, I don't really think there's that much to smile about right now. And I just think that having the good old boys get together on the practice field is not really the example of leadership I want to see. A better calculated move would have been to talk to the media together. Make himself available.
Here's how I interpret John Lynch showing up to practice. If I were John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan, we're there, and all of a sudden John York is right there next to me talking to me, even if he isn't addressing anything, he's just, hey, how's it going? What's going on, guys? How's the practice? How's Trey? Just innocuous questions. I'd be thinking, he's sending me a message. He's trying to send me, and the message is, I'm watching you. I'm assessing you. We gave you an extension. We liked you. We are assessing you. And we're not firing you, but we're watching you very closely now. What you do next week matters. What you do the week after that matters. This is all going to be evaluated at the end of the year. And I'm kind of like you're on the hot seat, dude. We're assessing you right now. Other thing is maybe, and this is just my interpretation, could be, I want to see Trey Lance. I'm watching. I'm here to send you a message subliminally and to watch Trey Lance. And he went to practice the day after Kyle Shanahan dismissed a question about Trey Lance. It was from Jake Hutchinson, who works for KNBR, the flagship of the organization. And he said, "When are have you reconsidered when you're going to start? Are you any further thought on when you're going to start Trey Lance?" And it really pissed off Kyle. Like, he was annoyed by the question that he keeps getting. And he said, "I've answered this before. We're not going to play him until we're out of it. I've answered. How many times do I have to keep asking this?" And he said, he was so upset. He said, "We're not going to play him until we're out of it," which is not what he meant to say. He said, "We're not going to start him." And so Matt Mayoko said, "Whoa. What do you mean you're not going to play him? That's new." And Kyle's like, "Well, you know what I mean." And Matt's like, "Well, no, I don't. Are you saying you're not going to start him? You're not going to play him?" He's like, "No, I have a package." So he was all flustered. And then the next day, York is there. And the next day, Shanahan goes on KNBR and walks it all back. And it's like, "Look, there's no conspiracy here. I'm eager to play." He had to walk. Someone said, "Dude, I don't know what you're trying to say, but it came off wrong. And now it looks like you don't like the kid. So now you got to go on the radio, most likely, and say you do." And guess what? Guess who's here today? Guess who's here today? John York. Who's he here? Why is he here? To watch Trey Lance. Message received? Message received? I think so. So anyway, that's heavy stuff to me. I mean, Jed going to practice, that's nothing. John going to practice, that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
So basically what you are saying is he let the media fillet him because he said something he may not have meant to say, sounded really horrible, and Jed York's like, "That's not
John
what I want. It's not what you said in the past, and I didn't draft Trey Lance to be a bench warmer."
Thank you.
Now,
what is going on?
I would add something else to this.
Like, I got to go to Santa Clara and see what's going on for myself because this is getting weird.
But I also think there's another aspect to this, and
Okay.
I think it is that Jed York wants us to see he will not just sit up on his high mountain while the ship is burning and sinking. I think he was also sending a message to the fan base that he's invested in what is going on. And the fact of the matter is,
the dad.
I
just want to make this distinction.
We call it showing your flag. You just, as a general, as an admiral, you just have to show your flag once in a while. Just stepping on deck will make every commanding officer sit up straight. That's the thing is, I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch sometimes suffer from a long leash, which is okay as long as they are winning and as long as they are showing good leadership. But Jed York going there was a little bit of tightening the leash. A little bit of showing the fan base that
John,
he cares.
you called him Jed. It was John. I'm sorry. I just want to get this for the viewers. It's John, the dad.
Right.
Sorry.
John.
Sorry.
Yes.
John.
Okay.
John. We're good. But yeah, no, this is a big deal. If Jed is buddy with Kyle and John. There's two Johns. So I'm calling them John York and Lynch. Lynch is just Lynch from now on. But Jed is buddy with Kyle and Lynch. They have dinner parties together. Their wives hang out. John York isn't buddy with them. John York lives in Youngstown. John York is like not interested. He delegates the whole thing to his son. But when things get weird, he's like, "All right, well, I guess I got to go to Santa Clara." And
I have to say that's very emasculating to Jed as well, because it's kind of like the old oil tycoon and his son is not, there are problems with the rigs, and he's come out to basically say, "What did you do now?
Yeah.
What did you break?
We have to end the charade that you're running the operation. I have to come on. Right.
Well, here's the thing. They can be friends. That there's nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong with too much of an interpersonal relationship. Generals and admirals do not go out to dinner one-on-one with captains.
Right.
Even though captains run ships. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan run the 49ers on the field, in the offices and things like that. There's a little bit of inappropriateness to the relationship of being, as you say, buddy. I never read it that way. And when you say that, I don't like that.
I don't like it. He wasn't buddy with Jim Harbaugh. He wasn't buddy with any coach until now. And to me, that just tells me that, like, you know what? Jed isn't. This is a Denise and John. To me, it feels like that Denise and John made this hire. That this is something they did. They stepped in and were like, "You know what, Trent? I know you really like Trent Baalke, Jed. That's your friend. He's out. And now we're hiring this guy." And
let me ask you something.
I don't even know if it's Jed's call anymore. I think if Kyle were to go, it's probably on John and Denise. And the fact that they're starting to show their faces, it's like interesting.
Let me ask you something. Who's responsible for all of these hires and fires? Getting rid of Harbaugh, bringing in Shanahan, bringing in Lynch, bringing in Baalke.
But I mean, up until bringing in Shanahan, it was all Jed. He was.
But that's what I'm driving at.
Yeah.
Does Jed go on the hot seat? I think he should.
I think he was on the hot seat the minute they fired Chip Kelly. I don't know how much he does anymore. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Jed hired Kyle and John. It might have been Denise and John. And the fact that John is now making appearances lends credence to my theory that those two are actually in control. Now, they delegate most of the year to their son because they don't really want to do it. But when it gets serious, it's down to them. When things got weird in 2016, they stepped in.
Because the Niners are in danger of being one of the worst teams in the NFL and being only a couple of years removed from the Super Bowl. And if they lose this home game and the next one, they will be the single worst home team in NFL history. Did you know that?
Yeah, their Levi Stadium will be the worst home field ever if they lose two more games. If they lose their next two, the worst. Levi Stadium will be the lowest winning percentage of any NFL stadium ever. So
that's why John came out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are getting weird in Santa Clara. Got to talk about it. Let's answer some questions. Jamaro says John Lynch, Kyle lied to us like Milli Vanilli did. Milli Vanilli? Are they the Milli Vanilli of executives? We already are set back 5 years, no cap. Dang.
Yeah, Toxic Runner makes a really good point. That's why we are talking about trading some of our big assets to try to recoup some first rounders, because otherwise, you're right. We're at ground zero right now. This is ground zero.
What did Brian Sabian do first thing when he became the Giants general manager? What did he do? You remember?
Say that again. Ask me one more time.
Brian Sabian. I remember it crushed me when I was a kid. He became the Giants general manager in the mid-90s. First thing he did was a very unpopular trade. Do you remember what it was?
Was he the quarterback?
No, Brian Sabian. No, I'm sorry. The San Francisco Giants. I'm going Bay Area here. Bay Area.
Oh,
San Francisco Giants. Brian Sabian comes in mid-90s. Trades Matt Williams.
So you'll have to educate me.
He traded Matt Williams to Cleveland, I believe. And for someone that no one had heard of, Jeff Kent. And it worked out. It was kind of the thing that propelled the Giants to be good.
Jeff Kent's baseball card.
You got to make some splashes when you come in. You got to change some things up. Because if it was working with Matt Williams and Barry Bonds, they would have been winning, but they weren't. So Brian Sabian comes in and trades a fan favorite who's very valuable, kind of at the end of his prime. Brilliant. It's what kicked off their run in the late 90s. Anyway, sorry, I was a Giants fan in the late 90s.
Big decisions. Absolutely. Yeah. That's the point. Yep.
Kyle hired Lynch. He should go too. That's a good point. How about the fact that Kyle hired Lynch? That's another bad decision on Kyle's resume. You could list 100 bad decisions Kyle's made since 2017. That's one of them. Hiring a non-general manager to be a general manager. Banana Hands needs trade, not the other way.
I don't think they will fire them both at the same time. Whew. Can you imagine that the franchise would say, we give up for the next 3 years?
Easy Tino says, Banana Hands needs trade, not the other way around.
That's a good point, because if Trey does well, he could save his career.
What are the chances Kyle starts Lance moving forward? If we lose Monday night, after all, he did say we could see Lance very soon. He also said he's not going to start him until they're out of it. So I don't know, mate. It's possible that the owner said, I don't know what your plan is with Lance, but this is our plan. If you lose to the Rams, that's it. Lance starts the rest of the way. It's possible, right?
And that might be why they came out and made that appearance, because they were going to deliver the message in private. But there's a lot to dissect, to unpack.
Very good point. That could have been it. Hey, we heard what you said in your press conference yesterday. We want to let you know that's not the plan.
Exactly.
You can start Jimmy this weekend against the Rams.
I'll be honest with you. If it was me who owned this team, I would have come out and be like, listen, you don't own the team. I own you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember that when you go being smug with my fan base and giving answers like that. By the way, I just want to say Matt Mayoko has been like the crusader for our cause this year. I've never seen him like this, and I completely back him up on that. But if you pissed him off, you're doing something wrong. I really feel that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's very easily appeased with a little bit of candor and just being honest and being polite. Yeah. But he's pissed. He's on a crusade right now.
Yeah, he is. Toxic Runner says, how far is the Niners Super Bowl window? I don't see it right now. I couldn't project that for you.
How far away? Because we don't have one right now. But if I will take a stab at that, if they do the things that Grant and I have been talking about here, and Jason and all the other guys, then you say 2 years away. I was going to say maybe 3.
Yeah, pretty much. But 2023 at the earliest. And that's why, to me, this season is so tragic because it's a waste.
This is a waste.
It's a waste. Had they committed to the youth and started now, you could be looking at next year.
Exactly.
Next year as the year that the window opens. But next year is going to be a transition year with a bunch of young guys who didn't play this year. So
you know what would be really cool?
Not that year either.
Trey Lance right now is it wouldn't just be his game time. He would show you what holes we have on this team so we could address those in the draft, because he might improve the play of people around him. You don't know the psychology of the impact of Trey Lance on the O-line, how they might feel like less pressured because they've got him behind them. They might step their game up. You'd be able to patch little holes if Trey Lance was playing this year. And then next year, no joke, you might be looking at the Super Bowl. Yes.
I mean, honestly,
they
like
not
the Bears
see this for themselves, I have no idea.
Like if the Bears make a few big moves in free agency, who knows? They could be a contender next year because they're going to have a really
I think they need to address their coaches. I think that's losing the
I agree.
The secondary coach.
Yeah.
Was the cornerbacks coach to the Browns, I think it was. Yeah. I think things like that really hurt. I don't think that Nico is as bad as he looks. I think that he does not have a staff.
Apex says the Niners should have Eric Bieniemy. I don't know if he's the right coach for the Niners, but there's a lot of good coaches out here. The Niner fans act like none of them will come to this team. I don't know. It's the Niners.
No, I think Trey Lance is very attractive to a new age kind of coach. I think that this guy could be a beefier version of Mahomes under me. I think that's what you will get if we go looking for another coach.
I totally agree. If Jimmy keeps starting, why keep watching? Maybe that's what John York was saying to Kyle. Look, I understand you have a plan, but you're going to cost me a lot of money if you keep playing Jimmy Garoppolo. So you better win this game.
It's like Greek mythology. It's about pushing the rock up the hill. You just keep doing it, hoping for the best. But, the thing is, we can still learn a lot from this season, and hopefully we will see some of our rookies played. That's why I watch, is because I'm waiting for rookies to be played.
Yeah,
and I love the city.
Yeah, that's why this season actually could get more interesting down the stretch if the rookies actually get in. Anthony says John's track record is as sketchy as the tenderloin. He has no room to chastise anyone. He and Parag need pink slips. Kyle must have a true boss.
What's the tenderloin?
Oh, like the neighborhood in San Francisco.
Gotcha.
It's a little sketchy. Yeah. Anyway, good point. Nice simile. All right, we got more stuff. Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. Your thoughts on him going to the Rams?
Everyone here has been electrified by his catch against the Dallas Cowboys over the back of his head. We know his skills. I followed him for a long time on social media. I'm a big Shannon Sharpe fan. Shannon Sharpe and him have a personal relationship. They are friends. So I've gotten a lot of feedback from him and Skip Bayless on the personality fit for OBJ and why it didn't work in Cleveland. I want to back it up to that. He and Baker Mayfield were buddies off the field. And I think Baker's heart is broken right now. But OBJ is a big lights kind of player. And I don't know. Have you ever been to Cleveland?
Once.
It's boring. They have one coffee shop. They don't have a Hot Topic in their mall. It's a really weird parking garage style mall. You can see across the city and you can walk across it in like 40 minutes. It's tiny. Yeah. And it's a beautiful little town. It's clean. But the stadium is like down in a parking lot right by the water. It's windy as heck.
There's nothing glamorous about Cleveland. It's just
right. OBJ is, and I mean this in a good way, he's a bit of a diva. And he wants to
be. Yeah, no, for sure. I feel you.
No, big
he wanted to play in New York. He wanted to play in LA. He wants to be on SportsCenter.
He would have been a great fit for the Dallas Cowboys. He might have even been good in Atlanta or some big city like that. But now he's in LA, and that's a great place for him. So that's the danger of OBJ. And I think that McVay knows that. What can we get out of OBJ now that we have him in the petri dish? Basically, we have him where he can thrive. And so that's the one thing. We might see a resurgence to OBJ, but his route running. OBJ, when he was with the Giants, I always felt like it was all about his ball skills. It was all about improvisation, the teams he was going against. It was just man-to-man, beating the corners. And I think the league kind of caught on to basically how to shut him down. Basically, press coverage, things like that, close to the line of scrimmage. I think that OBJ was also a victim of that. However, him coming to this team, We'll have to see what his personality fit is. Baker Mayfield is young and he just wanted to be his friend. Stafford has served his time in hell with the Detroit Lions. He is an old warhorse. He is really good. He has the cannon of an arm and the precision that might make OBJ very good. But I don't think he's going to come here and be the X factor. I think he's going to bolster their receiving cores. But if his personality does not fit, it won't work. So I just don't think this is going to send them to the Super Bowl. But it's a good signing. And it shows that they're pushing all their chips into the middle of the pile. I don't think they have anything to lose. But the one thing I will say, I don't think McVay has the personality to manage him. He's very nitpicky. He's very boy-like, McVay. The way he threw Goff under the bus, try that with OBJ.
Yeah, but he has managed other big personalities on the team like Jalen Ramsey, Marcus Peters. I actually think McVay's much more suited for a player like Odell Beckham than Kyle Shanahan.
Marcus Peters does not like McVay.
Yeah, they made it work for a while, and now they're making it work with Jalen Ramsey. I just think he's actually a better coach for this than Kyle is. But I'm not sure it's going to work out with OBJ. Here's why. To me, he's
a shadow of himself physically.
He doesn't care if you win or not. It's like if the Rams win and he only gets 4 targets, he's pissed. And he's pouting. And that's the problem. That's why I'm not the biggest OBJ fan. I think he's a little overhyped.
No, I'm not a fan of his either. Yeah.
Like, if he hadn't made that one catch that one time, like, what would his reputation be? It's a little overinflated. He hasn't done much.
Smart, actually. He's a social media guru because remember, he doesn't just make that catch. He does that catch again over and over and over in warm-ups.
Right, exactly.
He knows what he's doing. Basically, he was like, Nike, come get me. I mean, that's really what he's done. For the brand name, he's a social empire. He's like the Kardashian of the NFL.
So to me, he's overrated. And
he's
if he holds that on a good team, he's never really been on a good team. So now he's on a good team. How are you going to respond to that? Will he fall in line?
Well, that's why I was saying I don't think he's going to light up the league.
I don't know.
And like you said, if he gets four targets a game, he will carry his energy from one week to the next. He goes through like these dry spells of depression or whatever, where he's angry at his own team.
And the thing about him, like, it'll happen in the first quarter. If you don't get him the ball in the first drive, he's already pissed. He's. I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, not to muckrake or anything, but remember, this is the guy who had a deep conversation and argument with an air conditioner. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Where he punched it.
Will the Niners beat the Rams?
This is a toss-up for me. I would have to say yes. And the reason I say that is because it seems like we have McVay's number. Also, the Rams, they're coming off not the best performance recently. So I think they come into this supercharged. To them, I feel this is a must-win game for the Rams. That's what makes it dangerous to the 49ers. But as long as Kyle Shanahan plays his players correctly, they don't seem to. And here's the thing. Kittle is not prone to the fumble. I think it was an abomination. What does he have, like 3 fumbles or something?
Yeah.
And he got the other 2 back, I think.
Two. He's got 2. He fumbled on the onside kick earlier this year.
Okay, but I mean, right, that's true. He lost that one as well. But previously in his career, I think he has 2 fumbles lost, but they got them back or something like that. Anyway, I just don't think that Kittle is as much a liability as he has made himself to look this year. I think he has a bounce back game. Kittle and Deebo are Ram killers. And I think with that alone and Jimmy Garoppolo's track record against them, I think there's a slight advantage to the 49ers.
Here's why the Niners are going to lose, Sybilla. They're secondary. It always comes back to that. Like, it's a big problem. And so it cost them against the Colts, right? They couldn't handle Carson Wentz and freaking Michael Pittman Jr. And in the last 2 weeks, they haven't really gone against a team that could exploit it. Like, Colt McCoy wasn't throwing down the field, and the Bears had no wide receivers. But now you're going against Stafford, Woods, Kupp. It could get ugly. Because, again, all you got to do is throw it up. And it's passive.
So the Niners can beat themselves. But if they play some discipline, even a moderately disciplined football, I think they can edge the Rams in this. But it's going to require a run game that works. And it's definitely going to require Kittle to be in blocking form. And it's going to require ball security. This is a game where if the Niners just play within their confines and they play to their advantages and they play smart football, all three phases, I still think they can win. However, Kirkpatrick cannot play.
No, and Jimmy Ward has to play. They can't win with Tavon Wilson on the field.
I also don't think Norman, he can make some plays, but his coverage abilities this year, his fundamentals, his mechanics have been way off. They're not going to be, because Cooper Kupp is a really savvy route runner, and in order to keep up with him, they're going to have to hold him.
Right.
So we can't have the guys out there. I don't see why Lenoir would not be a good person to match up with him.
He needs to play. Lenoir has to play in this game.
He won't. They won't play him.
And they'll lose in that case because they're so focused on...
That's why I said they have to play who they have to play.
They're so focused on which quarterback to play. It's the secondary, and they can't even get their best corners on the field. That's why they're going to lose the secondary. And I know they've had the Rams number in the past, but they didn't go against Matthew Stafford, and he's a lot better than Carson Wentz, and he's not going to let the Niners off the hook here. So if they win this game, and they really could, they're going to have to get great performances from everyone in their secondary, everyone. Maybe they can. We'll see.
They need to study the 49ers, or the 49ers need to study the Rams-Titans game and model their defensive scheme off of that. But again, you could be right. It will be for naught if this game comes down to Norman and Kirkpatrick and their impact on the game.
It's our final topic of the show. You have something you want to say about Aaron Rodgers. Why don't you go ahead?
I have a lot to say about Aaron Rodgers. I've never liked him for a start. I think we all know about his COVID infractions, but let's back it up to his original reaction to the media when they were first talking to him, and they asked him, "What's your COVID plan?" And he said, "I'm immunized." Mm-hmm. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And the way he said it, first off, I knew he was lying right there. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way he said, he looked at the ground, he goes, "I'm immunized." Just the way he said it. He is smug. He's narcissistic. Yes. He's arrogant. He thinks because he has an American Studies failed degree he did not complete at Berkeley that he's smarter than everyone. My father went to Berkeley. He has a nuclear engineering degree. Sit down. I have a degree in aerospace science. I went to Embry-Riddle. Sit down. American Studies is basket weaving. But yet Aaron Rodgers thinks he's so much smarter than everyone out there. So he lies to the media. Eventually it comes back to haunt him when, of course, he pops positive. And of course, then the NFL is like, "Oh, we don't have a record, the CDC. We don't have a record of your vaccination. Yeah. What did you mean by immunized?" So then, of course, it comes to light. Aaron Rodgers lied. And more importantly, we've played him. Other teams have played him. He's done a jersey exchange, which for unvaccinated players, for jersey exchanges are not allowed anymore. He's addressed the media. He's mingled in public without his mask.
He's put others at risk.
What your position on the mask is. When you are a leader, you have to experience the most conservative approach you can take to public safety. Right. You have to exhibit leadership at every level. You have to respect the players on your team, and more importantly, the other teams. Right. Now, the Niners season is kind of done, but he's played some teams where he could have affected the playoff seeding, certainly, by popping them positive.
Could I say something real quick?
Of course.
I think what's interesting is, like, I always compare Rodgers in my mind to Brady because they're like the two best quarterbacks of their generation. And you look at Rodgers as being like the West Coast, well, kind of the more progressive and like progressive type. And you look at Brady as being the more like button-up conservative type. But Brady is a leader, and Brady's a better quarterback than Rodgers. And Brady got the Bucs to be 100% vaccinated, and Rodgers couldn't get himself vaccinated. So I just think that's an interesting distinction. Keep going.
Tom Brady could be a reverend if he wanted to be. He could be a priest because the way that he can make men do things, they're like, "Okay, yes, Father Tom, I will do it." Basically. But
that's not Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers throughout his whole career. See, I don't think he's ever been different. I think that people are finally seeing him for the person that he is. He's a diva, and you can see when he's losing. This is his body language.
Every time,
it's everyone else's fault but mine.
Yeah, every time.
But when Tom Brady is losing, he's sitting there studying the play sheet, yelling at people, getting people to go. So you're right. They are bipolar opposites when it comes to leadership. But let's go over something Aaron Rodgers said. First, he addressed on the Pat McAfee show, I think it was. The McAfee show, he addressed the media. He basically said, "Before the woke mob comes after me and puts the final nail of cancel culture in my coffin, I'd like to say a few things. First off, he reiterated that he never lied. Okay, well, you were not immunized. You had an arbitrator who was a third party between you and the NFL rule that your holistic approach did not classify as immunization. You did not follow the NFL protocols. And by the way, I'd like to throw out. So the NFL knew he was not vaccinated. Where is the NFL going to be held accountable for this?
Right.
They are 50%, or if not more, 75% the problem here.
Right.
We'll get to that later. But let's get on to Aaron Rodgers, where he goes and quotes the great Martin Luther King, and he likens his struggle, his oppression of COVID protocols to what Martin Luther King and the minority Americans, specifically Black Americans, were struggling through in the mid 20th century. But yeah, 20th century. So back in the 1950s and 60s, he likens his mask wearing to the oppression that Martin Luther King and his people went through. If this is not the ultimate example of white privilege and narcissism, I don't know what is. Put on your damn mask. It has nothing to do with being brutally oppressed, killed, economically subjugated, segregated from society. He's likening himself to that. And the quote he used was Martin Luther King said that you are challenged to not abide by bad rules in society. That's basically what the quote it amounts to. And he's likening wearing the mask to racial oppression. That's a dark note.
He learned that in his American Studies class. That was great.
Thank you. And I would like to say, I would love to know what Berkeley says about American studies circa 20, 30 years ago. Rodgers going there like 15 years ago. I would love to know what his American studies said, because they were written by people like him. Rose-colored glasses. That's how he sees American history, and his privileged, elitist attitude has got to stop. And the bottom line is he was fined just over $14,000. And I saw an article on, I think it was SI, that said that that's the equivalent of a mid-range economic American person being fined $33.10 or something like that. In other words, I would get more for speeding. There were two other infractions as well: a Halloween party and an axe throwing arena that he went to without his mask, where there was more than 10 people there, and the NFL didn't fine him for that. That would have amounted up to $29,000. And here's the thing: Green Bay should be paying the price for this as well, from a COVID standpoint, from a league infraction standpoint. So why did the Saints get fined? Was it a 6th-round draft pick they lost?
I don't know.
Something like that. Why do they get fined a draft pick for COVID infractions relating to the mask? But because it's Aaron Rodgers and he comes out with his white privilege statement about Martin Luther King, why is it he gets $14,000 and the Green Bay Packers do not lose any kind of draft picks? Here's why. Because the NFL is responsible, because they knew. And if you go to NFL.com, they're not talking about this. But they talked about it when Shanahan and Gruden and Sean Payton got fines. If you remember, that made headline news with NFL.com. But they are not talking about this because they are equally complacent. They knew, they let it go because he's good television.
Of course. He brings money. And that's probably why.
And here's the thing. I would absolutely love to see Devontae Adams and some of the other locker room leaders on that team. I challenge you to engage with Aaron Rodgers over what he said about Martin Luther King, because he does not have the right to invoke his words for something as mundane and childish as putting on your mask. And as someone whose grandfather actually fought the French in open war to free my country from white colonialism, no Frenchman is going to come along and invoke my grandfather's words. So I can only imagine the pain of people who actually respect Martin Luther King, because Aaron Rodgers is not one of them.
Okay, let's answer some questions. Carlos says, I think Lance will be a bust. It's hard to be a faithful right now. Fans are getting frustrated. They were booing the team off the field versus the Cardinals. Boo louder this week. I didn't hear that. Boo louder if you're mad, I would say.
Well, actually, there was an article on that. There was some booing.
Yeah, boo louder. We can't beat them with or without OBJ. Well, because the Niners beat themselves. Also, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods are really good. What if this is what was meant by we all will know when it's time for a change? Jimmy at his best is 3-5.
That's a great question because no one knows.
Yeah,
Literally, I not to give you a wise answer, but that's the whole point of this show is we don't know. We don't know when they will be forced to change.
OBJ with 4 targets is still a blowout because he can burn our. Is he going to play in this game?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I can see McVay trying to get him up to speed quickly because this is a must-win game for them. But I thought he was not suiting up. But we'll see. I'll have to check.
Please, we are not beating the Rams. How is that going to happen? With Kyle's super play calling, seems like he's intentionally losing, truth be told. That's how bleak it is for Niner fans right now. That's where they're going.
It's very bleak.
Very bleak. $20 Jimmy gets booed off the field during Monday Night Football. I don't know, man. Niner fans just haven't seemed that upset. Maybe on YouTube, but when at the games, they're just kind of like, I mean, they were cheering when the Niners cut it to 17 against, who's that? Like Cardinals. They cut to 17 and didn't go for 2, and Niner fans were like,
the stadium presence of San Francisco fans has always been good.
Yeah. Rodgers is smarter than Kyle Banana Hands. I used to think that Rodgers was smart, but the more he talks, the more I'm like,
yeah, that's you're talking about a guy who failed to get his degree in basket weaving. I don't think so.
Ooh, Woods out, torn ACL. Really? What? Oh my God.
Yes, he is.
Oh my God.
As reported by
That's not funny, but wow. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh. An hour ago, Robert Woods tore his ACL. Wow. Well, I guess, wow.
Friday's practice, they say.
Huh?
That's Schefter reporting. Schefter's
just the news
but that's
just
another
broke an hour
conversation.
ago. Wow.
I think Schefter and Rodgers should have their own show.
Freak accident. Wow. Okay. Well, I guess that changes everything.
That might put a timeline on OBJ. They might need him now.
Yeah, they might. I think they probably do.
Sorry to hear that about Woods. He's a good player.
All right. What else we got?
One Green Bay fan.
Let's see. Yeah. Robert Woods tore his ACL and OBJ is starting according to Schefter. There you go. Thank you, Priya.
Good report. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. All right, so hold on. Let's do this again.
So Woods is remember.
Let's
Woods
do this one more time.
Route runners. So that affects it, but I don't think it blows the game open for the 49ers because again, they were either going to beat them outright or the secondary is going to defensively give this game away. And Woods is huge, but Kupp, it doesn't really matter who's playing the 49ers secondary right now. It's just about throwing the ball as deep as you can and hoping they hold them.
Yeah. So no Robert Woods. You're sticking with the Niners beating the Rams? Or do you think? What do you think?
Well, Woods going out does not help them.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm not. Let's put this. I do not think the 49ers are going to rock them if they win, but I think there's a good chance they can beat them. However, if the secondary does as you say, this is going to get ugly real fast.
Yeah. I still think the Niners lose this game even without Robert Woods, although this makes it even closer. But Odell Beckham Jr., Cooper Kupp, all you got to do is throw deep. And the Rams do. They're not going to let the Niners off the hook on this one, even without Robert Woods. I think this is going to be a loss because of the secondary, not because – I think Jimmy will be fine. He should be okay. I mean, he's been pretty much fine all year.
Garoppolo did not have the worst game against the Cardinals. He was not the problem, to be honest with you.
He was good against the Cardinals. He was good against the Bears. He wasn't good against the Colts, but it was his first game back from injury.
And the rain and everything, and they did not practice in the rain. So, yeah.
So he should be fine.
Sometimes Shanahan stacks the cards against Garoppolo when it comes to preparation.
Yes. And sometimes he makes him drop back 50 times like last week as opposed to just handing off for whatever reason. So I think they're going to run the ball a lot against the Rams. I think Jimmy's going to play well. The Rams not having Robert Woods is going to hurt him, but Beckham and Kupp should be enough. Stafford is way better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and just those long pass interference penalties or straight up catches, the explosive plays that the secondary gives up one way or another are probably going to lose the game for the 49ers the way I see it.
And for me, to your point, that's 100% because of McVay understanding that and Stafford having the ability to throw the ball downfield competitively, because he will throw it downfield with a degree of great accuracy, and that means we will have to have good coverage. We do not have good coverage, so if we do not get after the quarterback, we do not control the trenches, then yes, the Rams will win. But if we can set the tone at the defensive line in the trenches, I still think that we can replicate some of what the Titans did. Not to that degree, but enough perhaps to scrape through.
This news makes the game much more interesting. The Niners definitely could win this game, and if they do, they're 4-5, traveling to Jacksonville to get right back to 500. So this season is interesting.
It is. I don't know how much it behooves the 49ers to win this game, especially if it is contingent on becoming a losing season for Trey Lance to play. I want him in whatever it takes. I want him in there as soon as possible.
They'll beat us in the secondary, then run it. Probably. I think we lose because of Kyle. I don't trust Kyle. I guess Niner fans don't trust Kyle. So that's the vibe I'm getting.
Kyle.
Sybilla, this was a Mondo show, a great show. Thank you very much for giving me all your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thanks for all the good questions to everyone. And thanks for listening to me. And I look forward to next week.
All right. Have a great Saturday, and we'll hear what Shanahan has to say in an hour.